رحم الله من قرأ سورة المبارك الفاتحة مع الصلاة على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. شكرا. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من اللعين الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وبه نستعين والحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف خلق الله أجمعين وأفضل الأنبياء والمرسلين ورحمة الله للعالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد. اللهم صل. والصلاة والسلام على أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المقتولين المظلومين ولعنة الله دائما على أعدائهم أجمعين. من يومنا هذا إلى قيام يوم الدين، أما بعد، فقال الله تعالى في كتابه المجيد: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم: وأنهم يقولون ما لا يفعلون إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا صالحات وذكروا الله كثيرا وانتصروا من بعد ما ظلموا وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون. Continuing on the discussion from last night, where we were looking at the biography of Umar ibn Sa'ad, and we were dissecting some of the attributes of his psychopathy and narcissistic and sociopathic behavior last night, right? We looked at that in depth. And that was one aspect. Now I want to turn the other side of the coin and look at another personality and look at what we would say is the complete opposite, the complete muqabil, the complete opposite characteristics of another individual. And today is devoted, I don't know why, in my heart I felt like devoting today to the mothers of Karbala, to the mothers and the ummahat and the pious women. Today we are going to speak about two people over tonight and tomorrow: Asma bint Umays and Muhammad bin Abi Bakr. Because it is these personalities that when we begin to understand them and their contributions towards the religion of Islam and the khidmah of deen and the path of wilayah, we will see how the foundations of wafa were set, of loyalty were set for the ashab of Ahlul Bayt salamullahi alayhim. The ayah that I just mentioned, both the mother and the son embody all the attributes of this verse. One, they perform righteous deeds. And of course, in this case, there's nothing like the mother, like the raising of a pious child. Number two, they constantly are remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the dhikr of Allah. Number three, they defend themselves after being oppressed. So they don't go through life sitting on their heels, watching the religion of Allah and the wilayah of Ahlul Bayt being attacked. Rather, they defend the religion of Allah after they are oppressed. The role of ladies in the movement of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam is just too well known. But there's a few instances that you may not have heard of. For example, were you aware that Zuhair ibn Qayn, why did he come to Karbala? What was the reason? We know that the Imam wrote him a letter. But at first he was hesitant to go, until his wife turned to him and she said to him, Ya Zuhair, ayab'athu ilayka ibn Rasulillah thumma la ta'ti? Has the son of Rasulullah summoned you, called upon you, and you do not go to him? And then began contemplating over this. And he decided to come to Karbala. So it was a woman. It was his wife. The ahadith tell us, the history tells us, that became the wasila from Allah. The means from Allah by which Zuhair would attain shahada and Jannah. She was the one who did tanbih to him, who gave him that warning, that maw'idah. So the role of the ladies of Islam, it's too vast of a subject. The ladies of Islam, of Ahlul Bayt and the Ansar, is such a vast and beautiful subject. And of course we know about the women of Karbala, al-Bani in Medina, of course, Sayyidah Zainab, Kulthum, Fatima bint al-Hussein. We know all of this, but I don't know how many of you knew about the wife of Zuhair ibn Qais. Not everybody necessarily knows that. Or about Wahab. We'll talk about her tonight. The mother of Wahab. What her role was on the day of Ashura. It will bring tears to your eyes. It will break your heart. But it will also, you will think to yourself, look at the shuja'ah and the courage of these women. Look at their wafa for the wilayah of Ahlul Bayt. Their loyalty. That not their children, not their husbands, no one comes before wafa and loyalty to Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. And they always would remind their children and remind their husbands and remind their sons and their daughters and their family that they are first and foremost the slaves of Allah and the followers and obedient servants of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. This is the example we see from the wife of Zuhair ibn Qais. This is the example we see from Wahab. And this is the example that we shall see with the coming of the Qa'im Sahib al-Asri wa Zaman. How many of you know this? This is often a question that is asked to me. If the Imam will have 313 special companions, what about the role of women? What about the role of the ladies? It's a very good question. Does that mean that this is just a men's movement? The ladies are at home and, they don't get any position in the Imam's army? No. In fact, we have several riwayat about the ladies and the mawqi' and the position of the women during the uprising and the qiyam of Sahib al-Asri wa Zaman. There is an ayah from Surah Al-Baqarah where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَيْنَمَا تَكُونُوا يَأْتِي بِكُمُ اللَّهُ جَمِيعًا إِنَّ اللَّهَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٌ. That wherever you are in the world, Allah will bring you together. يعني من مشارق الأرض ومغاربها. From the east and the west of this earth, wherever you are, Allah will join you and bring you together. When we look at the ahadith, this ayah is also revealed about the 313 companions of Sahib al-Asri wa Zaman. That they will be located in different parts of the world. Allah will bring them together. أَيْنَمَا تَكُونُوا يَأْتِي بِكُمُ اللَّهُ جَمِيعًا. That wherever you are, Allah will bring you together. This is the miracle. That they won't even know each other. There will be 313, or according to some traditions, 310 and some, that will come together in the city of Makkah. When the Imam arrives from Medina to Makkah, we'll talk about that later. But the 313 will arrive there. All of this on the command and the will of Allah Azza wa Jal. However, the riwayah continues of Imam al-Baqir. فِيهِمْ خَمْسُونَ إِمْرَأَ. Among the 313 will be 50 women. 50 women will be among the 313. يَجْتَمِعُونَ بِمَكَّةَ عَلَى غَيْرِ مِيعَادٍ. That they will gather in the city of Makkah without a specific appointment that they have set for one another. But somehow they will all gather together. أَيْنَمَا يَكُونُ أَيْنَمَا تَكُونُوا. Wherever you are, يَأْتِي اللَّهُ بِكُمْ جَمِيعًا. Allah will bring you all together. Wherever you are, it doesn't matter. But 50 of them will be nisa. 50 of these will be the women of Islam. And And 50 of these women will be in the position of qiyada. Yes, because the 313 are home. They're in the position of leadership. Now, what kind of leadership? Not necessarily military leadership, the ulama explain. But they will have a very prominent position in the government and the movement and the harakah of Sahib al-Asri wa Zaman. 50 women, according to Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam. In another tradition, in the Ghaibah of Nu'mani, it is related from Imam al-Baqir again. He says, it is as if I can see a day, كَأَنَّنِي بِدِينِكُمْ هَذَا لَا يَزَالُ مُتَخَدْخِدًا يَفْحَسُ بِدَمِهِ. That it is as if a day will come where the religion will continue to spill blood. There will be so much bloodshed, there will be so much suffering. It will continue. And this religion will not return to you until إِلَّا رَجُلٌ مِنَّا أَهْلُ الْبَيْتِ, until that selected person from us, Ahlul Bayt, comes. And in that year, يُعْتِيكُمْ فِي السَّنَةِ عَطَاءَيْنِ وَيَرْزُقُكُمْ فِي الشَّهْرِ رِزْقَيْنِ. And you will receive 2 doses of sustenance in that month. And in that year, Allah will provide for you twice. So the Sahaba of the Imam or the one listening must be thinking, what does this mean? What is Imam al-Baqir referring to, that the sustenance, the rizq will be twice? The giving or the plentiful, the gifts of Allah will be twice. Now the Imam answers, shuf, look at the answer. Allahu Akbar. What the Imam says, Subhanallah. The Imam's answer is, he says, تُؤْتُونَ الْحِكْمَ فِي زَمَانِهِ, that the wisdom will be to the point. It will go up. The wisdom, the hikmah in the zaman of Sahib al-Asri wa Zaman. حَتَّى إِنَّ الْمَرْأَ لَتَقْدِي فِي بَيْتِهَا بِكِتَابِ اللَّهِ تَعَالَى وَسُنَّةِ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ. That the wisdom will reach such a point that the lady will be in the position of issuing judgment in her house, according to the book of Allah and the sunnah of the Nabi. That one of the signs of Allah's wisdom and the rise of wisdom is that the ladies of Islam and the ladies of wilayah are also joining the men in their deep understanding of the book of Allah and the sunnah of the Nabi. Women have an equally important role as men in the support of the coming and the dhuhur of doing the ghaibah and the dhuhur of Sahib al-Asri wa Zaman. It is not a boys' club. Clearly the ahadith of the Ahlul Bayt indicate to us that that is not the case. And one of the signs of a healthy society, of a pious society, of a righteous society is when our mothers and our women are educated in the book of Allah and the sunnah of the Nabi and the Ahlul Bayt. Because how else are they supposed to raise their children to be among the atqiya and the salihin and the pious? How? The Imam is expecting us to support our ladies in their loyalty and their wafa to Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. In the knowledge of the book of Allah and the sunnah of the Nabi. These ahadith are not nadir or shadh. Our great ulama and maraja, they quote them in their books. There is a difference between culture and Islam. This is the Islam that should be told to the world, that people should know about what is our position when it comes to the role of our ladies and our pious mothers and ummahat in the building and the mabna and the foundation of a community and a home and a family. Now, how could it be that it is a custom, na'udhu billah, in some cultures, that women should not learn to read and write. Or women should not go past the 5th grade or the 6th grade or the 7th grade or whatever it is. La. But of course, the goal and the objective should be loyalty and love for Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. In another riwayah from Dalal al-Imama of Ibn Rustam al-Tabari, these are all the early sources, Ghaiba Nu'mani, Ibn Rustam Tabari, these are the early sources of hadith from the 4th and the 5th century of Hijrah. In another riwayah from Imam as-Sadiq salamullahi alayhi, he says, yakun or yukarru ma'al qa'im thalathat asharata imra, that with the qa'im will be 13 women. Now these women now have a different role. Qala, or rather the Imam was asked, ma yasna'u bihinna, he was asked, what will they do? And he answers, they will treat the injured, the jarha. They will treat those that are injured. They will attend to the marada, to those that are sick, just like at the time of Rasulullah. And then he names the 13 women from the zaman of Rasulullah. We don't need to go through all the 13 names. So from there are Sumayya, Ammar ibn Yasir, and many others. Ayman, and others. And there are 11 other women that Imam as-Sadiq gives their names, that they were chosen specially by the Messenger of Allah to be those that take care of the injured and the sick. Likewise, during the rising and the dhuhur of Sahib al-Asri wa Zaman, there will be 13 women. Now obviously there will be more than 13, but these 13 you would think are again in some kind of maqam of qiyada, because they will be in charge of all the others. They will be managers, they will be organizers, they will have some authority on in the hospitals or close to the battlefield, to nurse and to provide medical assistance. So the role of the ladies in the coming of the Imam and supporting the mission of the Imam shall never be neglected. This is on the basis of our ahadith from the A'imma, not on the basis of some modern or new fiqh or something. No, this is well known in the books of our ahadith and the traditions of Ahlul Bayt. Sallu ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. So we should raise our daughters. And I have a daughter myself. So I'm advising myself first and foremost. We should raise them to be learned women when it comes to the Quran and the Sunnah. Our daughters should never be left out of religious education. Never. If it is, then that is a jahal. That is a form of ignorance. That is a form of injustice, dhulam. And ultimately it is not following in the line of the expectations of the Imam of our age. May Allah hasten his reappearance. Ajalallahu ta'ala farajuhu al-sharif. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Our daughters and our mothers and our wives occupy the loftiest position when there is wafa for Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Yes, that's the condition, of course. Their loyalty to the wilayah of the Ahlul Bayt. Now, getting to one of those ladies. Oh, what a story it is. I think this is one of the most beautiful stories of Islam that we're going to begin tonight, which is the story of Asma bint Umays. After the death of Fatima to Zahra, Amir al-Mu'mineen married Asma bint Umays. But let's first rewind. So she was the wife of Amir al-Mu'mineen. But before that, who was her husband? Mu'mineen, you must know this. If we have followers of Ahlul Bayt, and the Sadat would know this. Her husband was Jaffar Tayyar. Asma bint Umays moved to Ethiopia, or to Habasha, with her husband Jaffar. Jaffar was, of course, martyred. They had a son. Who was their son? Abdullah ibn Jaffar. Who was who? The husband of Sayyidah Zainab. Are you now putting the puzzle together here? Asma bint Umays is an extremely important woman in Islam. According to the historians, she is almost as important as al-Baneen. Almost. Her maqam and her status, her spiritual status, her spiritual daraja is almost akin to that of al-Baneen herself if you look at what happens next now. First of all, she gives birth to Abdullah bin Jaffar. Her husband is Jaffar Tayyar. Just look at that. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And when we look at the attributes of Abdullah bin Jaffar, the son that she gave birth to, the son that she raised, the son that was chosen to be the husband of Zainab, Salamullahi alayhi Sayyidah Zainab. Abdullah bin Jaffar Kariman, Jawadan, Dharifan, Khaliqan, Afifan, Sakhiyan, Yusamma Bahrul Jud. He was the most generous, known as the ocean of generosity. إِنُّهُ لَمْ يَكُنْ فِي الْإِسْلَامِ أَسْخَى مِنْهُ. That there was no one more generous than him in Islam. This was some of the sifat of Abdullah bin Jaffar. Wait a second. His father died at a young age. So who had the most important role in raising Abdullah bin Jaffar? Asma bint Umays. The mother is to be thanked for these attributes in the son. The role of women and of tarbiyah of the mother is extremely important. And there's a beautiful riwayah where Jaffar Tayyar is killed. He was not yet known as Jaffar Tayyar, of course. Jaffar Tayyar is killed. The Prophet comes to visit Asma at their home. He begins rubbing the heads of the children in the home. Asma turns to the Prophet and tells the Prophet, "Why are you treating my children like aitam?" The riwayah says, Rasulullah ajaba biha bi'aqliha. Rasulullah was amazed at her aql, at her insight. And then he gave the news to the children that your father has been martyred. She then married, Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. She then married Abu Bakr. Yes. So after the death of Jaffar, she married Abu Bakr as he was supporting her. And she had a son. That son was whom? Muhammad bin Abi Bakr. We'll talk a little bit more about him. We should also remember who gave ghusl al-mayyit to Sayyidah Zahra. Asma bint Umays. This alone, without her being the mother of Abdullah bin Jaffar, without her being the wife of Jaffar Tayyar, without her being the one that the Prophet praised as being amazed by her aql and her intellect, this fadila alone is enough for her to be among the greatest women of the universe of the alameen. She and Amir al-Mu'mineen gave the ghusl to Sayyidah Zahra salamullahi alayha. What must be the maqam of Asma to give the ghusl to Sayyidatu Nisa al-Alameen? Can we even imagine? She was also at Khaybar. She saw what Amir al-Mu'mineen did. The riwayat state that she gave birth to Muhammad bin Abi Bakr. You know where? This tough lady. She wasn't only smart, she was tough. in the desert, on the sand, near Masjid al-Shajara. I mean, this woman, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Asma bint Umays. She died in the 88th year after Hijrah, 27 years after Karbala. But the story would continue now. She also played a vital role in the upbringing of Imam Hassan and Imam al-Hussein. Yes, they were ma'asum imams, but they were how young? They were still young. She played an upbringing in the role of her own children. Most importantly, at the time, she had 2 children with Amir al-Mu'mineen. Do we know that? She had 2 children, Aun wa Yahya. Yahya was a little boy. Some say Saghir, maybe an infant, he died. So Amir al-Mu'mineen already experienced what Rasulullah experienced by losing a baby. I don't know how many of us know Amir al-Mu'mineen lost a baby with Asma bint Umays. Now, Aun bin Ali would go on, the other son. His story is great, but we won't talk about him now. Aun ibn Ali and the son of Ali, of Amir al-Mu'mineen and Asma, would go on to become a very great person. Nevertheless, these were the great warriors of Islam. Muhammad bin Abi Bakr, Aun, and others all grew up alongside Imam Hassan, Imam al-Hussein, Muhammad ibn Hanafiya, and Abi Fadl al-Abbas, salamullahi alayh. They all grew up together in one group, fighting alongside Amir al-Mu'mineen. However, one of the greatest achievements of Asma bint Umays happened after the incident of Saqifa. What I'm about to present here might be a little sensitive to some people, but this is what is narrated in our books in the Mustarshid of Ibn Rustam al-Tabari. In this text it is stated that after Saqifa, of course, we know that there was a conflict between Banu Hashim and the Khalifa of the time, the first Khalifa. In the midst of all of that, Sayyidah Zahra is denied Fadak. Umar rips up the deed of Fadak according to some traditions. At this point, he says, Aisha and Hafsa have testified that the Prophet leaves no inheritance. Thus, I will accept the testimony of Aisha and Hafsa over the testimony of Fatima to Zahra. So look at this. He's now saying that I will accept the Shahada of Aisha and Hafsa over that of Sayyidah Zahra. Amir al-Mu'mineen now comes in and he tells him that you have rejected the testimony of Allah Himself. That are you saying that you do not accept the kalam of Fatima to Zahra? وَقَبِلْتَ شَهَادَةَ النَّاسِ عَلَيْهَا, and you accepted the witness of people against Sayyidah Zahra? Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. At this point, the people started yelling, Sadaqallah, Sadaqa Ali. Umar, the second Khalifa, was very embarrassed because Amir al-Mu'mineen just put an argument towards him from the Quran, demonstrating the tahara and the isma of Fatima Zahra, and saying, how can you ask a ma'asum for a testimony? That how can you tell the ma'asum that your kalam that is not true? The ma'asum does not require a bayyina, an evidence in court. This is all discussion in Bab al-Qada and fiqh. You can go to those books to read that. But the point is, Amir al-Mu'mineen stood up for his wife. You know, people that say, oh, he didn't do anything, this and that. This is not true. Amir al-Mu'mineen, at every occasion, he stood for justice. When he saw his wife was being oppressed, he stepped in. We have other narrations as well in Ibn Sa'ad's Tabaqat al-Kubra and many books of history like this. Nevertheless, ba'd sarat mushkila. There was now a problem because certain people's feelings were hurt by this. Khalifa al-Awwal goes home. The first Khalifa, he goes home. He begins now discussing this issue with the second Khalifa, who says that it would seem that Ali la yafsadanna amruna, that he's going to break up our rule. So what do we do? What is the solution now to this? They now decide that they would hire somebody to deal with it. That they would hire somebody, find somebody to take care of the problem, with air quotes around taking care of the problem. Who do they hire? Khalid ibn Walid. Who else would they hire? Of course, Khalid ibn Walid. When you want to get this kind of stuff, dirty work done, you call Khalid ibn Walid. He's your, go-to guy for this kind of work. They call Khalid ibn Walid. However, there is now a problem here. Asma bint Umays, while she was married to the first Khalifa, overheard this. Now what would she do? Remember, who was she married to? Abu Bakr. She just now overheard a very unsavory plot to take care of Ali ibn Abi Talib. Now this is incredible. She sent her female servant to the house of Amir al-Mu'mineen with a message from Surah Al-Qasas, ayah 20. And she asked the servant to say the following: إِنَّ الْمَلَأَ يَأْتَمِرُونَ بِكَ لِيَقْتُلُوكَ فَاخْرُجْ إِنِّي لَكَ مِنَ النَّاصِحِينَ. Of course, this is a reference to Shamun, who was the believer among the house of Fir'aun. Basically saying that the ruler has decided to kill you. Leave. Seek security. I am giving you advice. She could not warn him directly. Nobody would know. She's sending an ayah of Quran to the house of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Look at the hikmah, huh? This is what we mean, but the ladies have great hikmah, the ladies of Islam, the ladies of Wilaya and Wafa. They can speak through ayat of Quran. They don't need to speak directly. Asma bint Umays could not send a message directly to her servant, and she could not take the risk of disclosing this to the servant. You don't know if the servant is loyal to you or not. She then sends the message to Amir al-Mu'mineen. Amir al-Mu'mineen says, Inna Allah yuhilu baynahum wa bayna ma yuridun. That Allah will unravel and fix between me and whatever they have decided. The day comes, it is now Salatul Fajr. Amir al-Mu'mineen is in Masjidul Nabi, and it's about to go down. Khalid ibn Walid is sitting behind Amir al-Mu'mineen according to some riwayat. As Amir al-Mu'mineen enters into tashahud, some say after the salam, he says, Ya Khalid la taf'alu ma amartaka bi. 3 times he says, O Khalid, don't do what you were ordered to do. At that point, the riwayah says that Khalid began to shake. And he sat there, did not get up. The salah finished, salam is done, everything is done. Khalid is sitting there now. Amir al-Mu'mineen turns to him and he says, Khalid, were you really going to do what you were set out to do? قال نعم. فَضَرَبَ بِهِ الْأَرْض. Amir al-Mu'mineen takes him and slams him to the ground. Don't mess with Amir al-Mu'mineen, Haydar al-Qarrar, Asadullah. Don't mess with the line of Allah. When it comes to haqq and adala, don't come near Amir al-Mu'mineen. Amir al-Mu'mineen lifts him by his collar. At this point, the second Khalifa comes and he begins to scream that if nobody does something now, Khalid will be killed. Because Amir al-Mu'mineen, the riwayah says, with one hand was holding Khalid by his collar. Khalid ibn Walid is supposed to be the strongest of the warriors of Islam. They call him Sayful Islam, don't they? The sword of Islam. Yet Amir al-Mu'mineen with one hand is holding Khalid ibn Walid in the air by his collar.
And no one can do anything. Khalifa al-Awwal, Khalifa al-Thani, everybody's coming. When Amir al-Mu'mineen's grip is there, nobody can open the grip of Amir al-Mu'mineen. Nobody. He puts him down. Look at the sabr of Amir al-Mu'mineen. He puts him down. And he leaves him. We'll continue the story tomorrow, inshallah, the rest of what happened. But the point is that the ladies of Islam, the ladies of Wilayah, have played a pivotal role in the preservation of the deen, even in the preservation and the hifth of the hayat of the ma'soom and the life of the ma'soom. Not only in Karbala did Zainab save Zain al-Abidin, but Asma saved Amir al-Mu'mineen in Medina. How many of us know of these stories? That the example for Zainab was seen in her own mother-in-law. Her mother-in-law, right? She was a mother of Abdullah bin Jaffar. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Upon arrival in Karbala on the 2nd of Muharram, it has been reported that the Imam greeted his family and children. And he then says that we have been estranged and expelled from the city of our grandfather in Medina, as Samata Sheikh just recited in Arabic. That the sisters and the brothers and the children have been thrown out of Medina. Now they have been thrown out of Makkah. Now they find themselves in the city of Karbala, in the area known as Karbala. The Imam is then describing how Bani Umayyah oppressed them. The Imam recites two heartbreaking du'as as Sayyidah Zainab is listening. Hussein gathers all of his children and Ahlul Bayt together. ثُمَّ نَظَرَ إِلَيْهِمْ فَبَكَى سَاعَةً. That he gathers them and he looks at them and he begins to cry. If this dua will not break your heart, I don't know what will break your heart. He says, Allahumma, oh Allah, we are the family of your Prophet. We have been thrown out an harami jaddina, from the haram and the sanctuary of our grandfather. Uz'ijna, that we've been harassed. This is Hussein who has not left Medina out of his own accord. This is a son of Safa and Marwa who has now been taken out of Safa and Marwa. He then says, oh Allah, Banu Umayyah has exceeded all the limits. Allahumma khudh lana bihaqqina wansurna ala al-qawm al-zalimin. Oh Allah, assist us against the zalimin. Imam says the people are abidud dunya. They are but slaves of this world. He turns to his ashab saying, Hada Karbala. This is the place of Karbun wa Bala. Ha huna munakhu rikabina. That this is where we will bring our things down. Mahatu rihalina. This is where our possessions will be left. Maktalu rijalina wa masfaku dima'ina. And where our blood will be spilled, where our men will be killed. Jalasa al-Hussein. Hussein now sits down and he is holding his sword and he recites the poem. Ya dahrun uffun laka min khalil kam laka bil ishraqi wal asil. Oh time, woe to you from a friend. What do you have to offer between sunrise and sunset? Imam surrenders his cause to Allah. Zainab salamullahi alayha is listening to the Imam. The women begin to cry. They could not bear losing their Imam. Hussein now begins to cry. وَبَكَى النِّسْوَى وَلَطَمْنَ الْخُدُودِ. And the women are crying. The women are crying. And they're beginning to hit themselves, saying, Wa Muhammad wa Aliya wa Hawa Husayna wa day'atana ba'dak ya Abu Abdullah. That we are lost after you, Abu Abdullah. Abu Abdullah turns to Zainab, says, Ya Ukhta, ta'azza bi'aza'illah.
not scratch your faces. In another report, when Zainab heard these lines, she ran out barefoot to Abu Abdullah with her abaya dragging in the turab, in the sand. Ya Allah, just imagine this sight. She says, Layt al-maut, addamani al-hayat. That if only I would die now. El-yawm matat ummi Fatima. The day when my mother Fatima died. Wa abi Ali wa akhi Hassan. If only I would go now. If only I would die now. فنظر إلي الحسين وقال يا أختي. Hussein looks at Zainab and says, oh my sister, do not allow shaitan to take your sabr away. قالت بأبي وأمي. Oh my brother, by my mother and my father Ali and Fatima. أتقتل نفسي لك الفداء. Shall I be killed for you? Look at the fida of Zainab bint Ali. The spirit of fida and sacrifice of Zainab bint Ali. Look at the ummahat and the nisa of Ahlul Bayt salamullahi alayh. Allahu Akbar. The tears begin to flow down the cheeks of Imam al-Hussein. They begin to flow through the lahya of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. فَذَلِكَ أَكْرَهَ لِقَلْبِي. He says, oh Zainab, this tears up my heart. Imagine the broken heart of Abu Abdullah, brothers. Wa Husaina, wa Abu Abdullah, wa Imama, wa Ghariba. Ala la'natullahi ala qawmi dhalimin. Wa saya'lamu alladhina dhalamu ayya munqalabin yanqalibun. مأتم الحسين سلام الله عليه.